Hello and welcome to Holiday Greek, Picture Perfect Greek, and today we have another one of those special articles I wrote for you. If you're going to Greece as a tourist and you need to know the basic words, and you will find all the written materials for this on my Substack, go there, and some of them are free. Go download them and take them to Greece on your phone so that you have all the vocabulary together. We cannot discuss all the vocabulary here, of course, because it would be too boring in a video to give you just a long list of vocabulary. Instead, what I will do is we will read together a short text, we try to understand it, and later you can go to the Substack and get the vocabulary for this lesson together with all the text in writing. So here is our text for now. I will read it to you first in Greek, and today we're talking about numbers and money. This is the level A2 roughly, if you know about these language levels. I will read you a short piece of text in Greek only, and then we will translate it word for word, sentence for sentence, until you understand it, and then we talk about the vocabulary. So let's go. Στην Ελλάδα τα νούμερα είναι παντού. Στην αγορά, στο ταξί, στο εστιατόριο. Αντί να δείχνετε με το δάχτυλο, αξίζει να μάθετε τους αριθμούς από το 1 μέχρι το 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 και 10. Με αυτές τις 10 λέξεις μπορείτε να ζητήσετε 2 καφέδες ή να πείτε τραπέζι 3 και οι ντόπιοι θα καταλάβουν αμέσως. Στο κατάστημα ή στο σούπερ μάρκετ συχνά ρωτάμε πόσο κάνει και πόσο είναι. Αν θέλετε να πληρώσετε με κάρτα, λέτε πληρώνω με κάρτα. Αν έχετε μετρητά, ρωτάτε έχετε ψηλά, δηλαδή έχετε μικρά ρέστα. Η πληρωμή στην Ελλάδα είναι απλή. Οι τιμές είναι σε ευρώ και τα περισσότερα μαγαζιά δέχονται και κάρτα και μετρητά. Okay, that's the whole text. I hope it wasn't very difficult, right? But let us go through it anyway and discuss the interesting words here. Στην Ελλάδα, in Greece, τα νούμερα είναι παντού. Numbers are everywhere. I mean, that's not only Greece, right? It's everywhere, but we have to start somehow. Στην αγορά, at the market, στο ταξί, in the taxi, στο εστιατόριο, in the restaurant. Perhaps I should say restaurant is estiatorio. An estiatorio is normally a somewhat upscale restaurant that often is more westernized, that will have perhaps a nice inside area with some nice, tablecloth and such things, which gives it a little bit more of a classy feeling, while a taverna is more the everyday, often outdoor, beach, cheaper looking food that is more Greek, originally Greek, more for the locals, but often, of course, nowadays also for tourists. And you want to generally go to a taverna rather than an estiatorio. Estiatorio is the more general term, so a taverna is officially, legally, it's also a kind of estiatorio. But when it says estiatorio, it's a little suspicious that perhaps it's not a really Greek experience, while the taverna is more what you will find everywhere and where people sit and eat, informally. So yeah, estiatorio here because it's the more general term. Αντί να δείχνετε με το δάχτυλο, instead of doing something, comma, do something else. This is the general structure of this. Αντί να δείχνετε με το δάχτυλο, to show, δείχνω, με το δάχτυλο, with the finger. Instead of showing with the finger, comma, αξίζει, it is worth it. Αξία is the value. Να μάθετε, to learn, τους αριθμούς, the numbers, από το 1 μέχρι το 10. Από, μέχρι is another pattern. From something to something. Από something to, μέχρι something. Από το 1 μέχρι το 10. From 1 to 10. And then come the 10 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, if you don't know these, go learn them. Με αυτές τις 10 λέξεις, with these 10 words, μπορείτε να ζητήσετε, you can ask for 2 καφέδες, 2 coffees, ή να πείτε, or to say, τραπέζι 3, table number 3. So this is in restaurants where the tables would be numbered, right? And then perhaps you have a reservation for table 3. Και οι ντόπιοι and the locals. Ντόπιος is the local, the person from a particular place. Θα καταλάβουν αμέσως. They will understand immediately. Στο κατάστημα ή στο supermarket. In the shop or in the supermarket. Κατάστημα is more generally a shop, but a supermarket is, again, technically also a κατάστημα. Here the distinction is made, you know, the κατάστημα, perhaps it's more something like a κατάστημα for clothes, a κατάστημα ρούχων, or κατάστημα παπουτσιών, where you can buy shoes or whatever other things. And then the supermarket is specifically the supermarket, which is mostly a grocery store, although they have also all kinds of other things, especially in more touristy areas. You will find swimming gear and sunglasses and sun creams and all kinds of other things in a supermarket. Στο κατάστημα ή στο supermarket, συχνά ρωτάμε, often we ask. Συχνά means often, ρωτάω is to ask. Πόσο κάνει, how much is it? How much does it make? Πόσο κάνει means how much is it, και πόσο είναι, and how much is it again. So these are the same questions, right? There are two ways of expressing the same question. How much do I pay for this? Πόσο είναι και πόσο κάνει. Αν θέλετε να πληρώσετε, if you want, αν θέλετε, to να πληρώσετε, pay, πληρώνω means to pay. And this is interesting also. Actually, it comes from pleris, which means complete. So πληρώνω means to complete something. If you want to complete the transaction, right? This is where this idea comes from. So if you want to pay, which is the word πληρώνω means pay in modern Greek. I'm just explaining where it comes from, right? It means to complete the transaction. If you want to pay με κάρτα, with card, λέτε πληρώνω με κάρτα. You say, I am paying with a card. Αν έχετε μετρητά, if you have cash, ρωτάτε, έχετε ψηλά, do you have small cash? Ψηλά. Ψηλά is written with iota, not with eta, right? You have to keep this apart. Ψηλά mit eta means high, tall, while with iota it means thin. Something is thin or small. And so ψηλά is the thin money, is the small change, right? As opposed to big money like, 100 euros or 50 euros. So, έχετε μικρά ρέστα. Do you have small change? But nobody says μικρά ρέστα. So this is just a translation so you understand what the sentence is saying. You should say έχετε ψηλά. Now there's a lot hidden here in the subtext of this that is worth, unpacking. First, with paying with card is something that most shops will allow you to do because they are required to. And the real reason why they're required to is that the government wants to do something against the shops stealing on the taxes. Because as long as people pay cash, they can just hide the money and they don't pay taxes on it. They can present a smaller income, right, to the tax authorities, while when the payment is made by card, then there is a clear record of it and the shop has to pay taxes on it. This is why the government wants everybody to pay with cards. On the other hand, this is also the reason why the shops don't particularly like cards, except if these are very big shops, of course. If they're big supermarket chains, then of course these are paying their taxes legally and they don't have any problem with card payments. But if you go to a small shop in a village, it is a little offensive to force the person there to accept a card. Probably you could force them, but they will be unhappy. They will be unhappy first because they have to pay the card fees also, right? The card doesn't come for free. The seller has to pay fees for it, so they will get less money than what they charge you. And second, they have to pay taxes on it. And I don't want to suggest that all Greeks are trying to get out of paying their taxes. But there are situations in which you want to show understanding if somebody is, an old person in a periptery and he looks like he's not, very rich, and you buy an ice cream and then, you can just give him the 20 cents that he would be paying in taxes and, give it to him by paying in cash rather than forcing him to accept a transaction, which first will take away for the card company money for the card company. Probably they also have to pay for this card machine, and then they also have to pay taxes on it, so that in the end they don't make much on your ice cream. So this is a little bit of a social thing where you have to evaluate how much do you want to pay with cards. And this is worth noting because in other countries, I've never been to the United States, but I guess there it's very common to pay with cards, right? But in Greece it is still seen as, especially in tavernas also, which are often small family companies, not big chains, it is often seen as a friendly gesture to offer to pay in cash rather than a card. But the problem is also, which is also mentioned here, that it is difficult sometimes for these small shops to have enough small change, because if everybody comes in and buys an ice cream with 20 euros, then very soon the psila, the small change, will be exhausted. They will be out of it, right? They won't have any more. So then when you come there with your 20 euros to buy an ice cream, they will tell you, sorry, we cannot change this. And so this is the question, etiquette psila, do you still have change? But it's also good style to not even ask, but to have your own psila. So you should kind of, wherever you go and pay with cash and you get some cash back, collect it and keep your change small, and don't try to pay with something that is overdimensioned, right? Don't go pay an ice cream with 50 euros or something, because you're just robbing this small shop of all its psila, so that later they don't have any psila. Somebody has to run to the bank and change money, and often if it's in a village, perhaps there is no bank close by. So it is really troublesome for these small sellers to have enough psila. So you have to be a little considerate, and it's also again appreciated if you pay with psila rather than taking their psila away. So I know this all sounds a little difficult, but this is the reality of life. Η πληρωμή στην Ελλάδα, the payment in Greece, is simple, είναι απλή. Απλώς means simple, and it means simple really literally means one layer of something, as opposed to double, right? This is a simple bed, this is a double bed. You don't say simple bed in English, right? You say single bed, but this applause means one layered as opposed to the plus, which is double layered, or triplos, which is 3 layers. So you can have toilet paper that is applause, or diplo, or triplo. And so applause means single, simple. Payment in Greece is simple. Οι τιμές είναι σε ευρώ. The prices are in euro. Και τα περισσότερα μαγαζιά and most shops δέχονται, they accept. Δέχομαι, to accept. Και κάρτα και μετρητά. Cards and cash. And this is another pattern you want perhaps to remember. Και something means both this and that. They accept both cards and cash. Δέχονται και κάρτα και μετρητά. Okay, so that's the text. And we have lots of vocabulary, which I don't want to read you now, all of that. We already talked about some grammar points. A few other useful things to learn, especially if you're learning numbers. Don't learn only the numbers to 10. Try to learn the numbers that come after that also, 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on until 20. And the bigger numbers, 30, 40, 50, until 100, and then 200, 300, and 1,000. Then you cover, the range that you are likely to encounter in terms of money. And again, on the Substack, you will find this article in writing with all these numbers in an appendix vocabulary where you can learn all these words. So a few common phrases about money. Πόσο κοστίζει, how much does this cost? Or πόσο κόστησε, how much did it cost in the past form? Είναι ακριβό, is it expensive? Είναι φτηνό, is it cheap? Έχετε ρέστα, do you have small change? Δεν έχω ψηλά. I don't have change. Πού είναι το ταμείο? Where is the checkout? Το ταμείο is the checkout, the cashier. Θέλω απόδειξη παρακαλώ. I like a receipt, please. And again, this is a little bit offensive, right? Sometimes, because the receipt means that if you get a receipt, especially if it's a legal one with, or printed by a computer with all the numbers on it and so on, then this means that the person has to pay taxes, right? So if you want to be charitable to your hosts in a tavern, especially if it's a tavern you go again and again and it's a little family place and they know you and you know them and you go to the kitchen and you talk with the children, then, in this case, you wouldn't say you want a receipt, right? Because then you force this person to pay taxes. You just leave it to them. It's a gentleman's thing, You just don't ask for their apology. Give them the cash and leave it to them what they do with their legal obligations. I mean, it's not your business, right? And I know that it sounds a little weird, but you have to see that in Greece it's difficult for these small operations. Sometimes it's difficult to make ends meet, especially if they're small family shops. And taxation can be harsh in Greece. And so there is some understanding for the ways in which people try to, survive. Είναι δωρεάν. Is it for free? Μπορώ να δω το menu. Can I see the menu? And again, this is something you would not typically say in this situation of a small family tavern. Often they don't have any menus, right? Because they are just cooking something of the day where the mother goes to the kitchen and cooks a thing. And then this is what the guests are supposed to eat. There is no menu because it's only a family. It's only two people in the kitchen, often the grandmother and the mother cooking together. So they make 5 dishes every day, something different, and that's what you get. So asking for the menu is actually, it outs you a little as a tourist who doesn't know how things work. And they might give you one, but then you might not get the best food. It's normally better to ask them, τι έχετε? What do you have? What is the food today? Τι έχει σήμερα? Τι θα μου δώσετε να φάω? What will you give me to eat? So this creates a bond of trust with the person who is serving you, right? You say, what will you give me to eat? Τι είναι καλό για τα παιδιά? What is good for the children if you have children? Point to them. What is good for the children to eat? Τι να δώσουμε στα παιδιά να φάνε? What do we give to the children to eat? So this works if you are not in a touristy place. If you are in a small place, in a village, and you have a little family business, restaurant, then these are good ways of approaching the food ordering, because then you are more likely to get a recommendation for something that's fresh and good quality and what the locals would eat and what they would give to their children, rather than going in as a tourist and saying, I want the menu. In the menu you will find probably many things they can make because they are just frozen in the freezer and they just stick it in the microwave and give it to you. But these are not things they would eat or they would give to their children. So it's always worth creating a social bond there a little bit, as much as you can, without it looking fake, of course, but you can try. You can say, what is good today? What is fresh today? Τι είναι καλό σήμερα? Τι να φάμε? Τι να παραγγείλω? Τι θα μου δώσετε? What will you give me? And then you are more likely to get the good food. Of course, there are always exceptions. There are always restaurants where you can order by the menu and get good food, or restaurants where you can ask and still get cheated. But, that's then bad luck. But you can do as much as you can yourself to improve your chances. So let's go. We have, as always, a little quiz at the end of this. I will now tell you sentences in English and you translate them to Greek. If you find that I am not stopping long enough, then pause the video until you can find the answer yourself. How do you say, instead of pointing with the finger, in Greek? Αντί να δείχνετε με το δάχτυλο. This is the plural form. If you speak to one person or if you want to be familiar rather than official, αντί να δείχνεις με το δάχτυλο instead of δείχνετε. Δείχνετε is the plural, δείχνεις is the singular. How do you say 17? We didn't talk about this, but let's see if you know your numbers. 17. 17. 17. Since we are at the numbers, how do you say 123? 123. 123. 123. And if you want to have all these numbers, go to the Substack and find the written materials. How do you say the locals? I doppi. I doppi. People from that area. How do you say, how much does this cost? Posso cani. Posso cani. How do you say, do you have small change? Έχετε ψηλά? How do you say the shop accepts cards and cash? Το μαγαζί δέχεται κάρτα και μετρητά. Το μαγαζί δέχεται κάρτα και μετρητά. Cash is μετρητά, means things that are counted, right? Metro means to count. Okay, that's it. Thank you and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.